Hi everybody, this is Marilyn Almodovar, and I was gonna do an update, and I sort of did a video, and I sort of wanted to upload it, and then I didn't because I chickened out. Basically, I've been in this genealogical search journey since 2000, and some of you who read my blog or follow me on Facebook or probably follow me on Twitter know that I'm always tweeting and sharing stuff about ancestry or FTDNA or 23 or any advances in the DNA field, testing field. And somebody asked me, why I was doing that. What was I expecting to find, and what was I trying to achieve with my many shares and Twitter shares and everything. And there's nothing really I'm trying to achieve. I'm not a scientist. I'm trying to better understand about genome and haplogroups and all of those things. But like I said, I started this journey back in 2000 when I had my first child. And if you're counting, yes, he turned 16 in April. So and I started doing it because my husband comes from, he's French, and he comes from a very old family, and they have especially his mother's side is quite aristocratic, and they have a really extensive tree. And I wanted to do that for my kids, even though I knew I wouldn't find, kings and queens of France or Spain or whatever. I wanted my children to know, especially because we tend to move, you know, across countries. Like we got married in Tampa, we moved to London, we lived there for a decade, moved to France. We're in Paris, then we're in Normandy, moved back to Tampa, and I'm trying to design an escape route out of Tampa because I really don't like it here. It's too hot. So I tried to do that, and I wanted my kids to know a little bit more about their family, because I know, like, they don't really care now. My eldest will ask some questions, but I think it's mostly to be polite, because he knows I get really excited when I find stuff. And my little one, he's too little to really understand, the repercussions and of whatever I find. But he always listens to me, which is really sweet. So I started that journey because, some people will tell you, and I've had this from people in the family, like, well, we're Puerto Ricans, and, we came from Spain, and, that's basically it. And my mother especially was like, whoa, I don't need to know. I know. And it was really funny because I was like, well, you don't really know because my mom was adopted and we didn't really know anything about her family. We lost touch with her family, with her biological family back when I was, I don't know, probably 9 or 10. And even though they did talk to her probably, I don't know, once or twice more after that, I never knew my cousins. So it was a mystery to me. Like, I knew my grandparents, my adoptive grandparents, whom I love and miss every day, and that side of the family. And then I knew my dad's side of the family. And it was really funny because growing up, I always thought my great grandfather, he looked quite Taino, which is the Native American Indians in I don't know, do we say Native American Indians? Native American, Aboriginal people of Puerto Rico, who were actually, I don't really think, because they came from Venezuela, the Arawaks. But anyway, that's another history lesson. But the thing was that I thought he always looked pretty much like a Taino would look. He had dark complexion, and my grandmother, even though she was white, she didn't look Spanish enough to me, I think, like my mom does. Like my grandmother, I thought she was kind of a mix of Taino and Spanish. So it was really funny because I would ask them and they would, no, we are Catalans, And I thought, well, maybe Catalan people look like that. But then my great grandmother, she had red hair way in her 80s, with like little bits of blonde hair in it. Not gray hair, blonde hair. Um, and mother's family, who was my great grandmother, they were all redheads and very, very white and freckled people. And my great granddad's family, were not. They look more Taino. So, I remember asking him, and he was really upset that I brought it up. And he told me, like, no, we're not, we're Catalans, and I'm just tanned because I work the fields, because he was a farmer. And I thought, well, okay, maybe that's the real reason. And he's really, really tan because he's always outside in the sun, and Puerto Rico's sun, it's unforgivable and burns people. So, I didn't really think much about that until probably sometime in 2011, when I discovered that you could actually test your DNA. And then I was like, totally have to do these because it'll be cool to see the percentages. Because when you grow up in Puerto Rico, they'll tell you we are a mix of Spanish, Native American, Tainos, and African. And then it was, I really, really wanted to see what was what, and also kind of like wish that we could, you know through the DNA testing, um see if it was true that we had Jewish ancestry. So I took my test with Ancestry, and that was the first test I took, and I was really happy because I actually got, let me just fix this here on the iPad for you to see. um that's my full maiden name in there. But as you can see there, can you see it? 15% Native American. And I'm actually a cousin. Oop, gone. Sorry. I'm actually a cousin of the Clovis baby. So if you want to find that out, you can type Clovis baby JetMatch kit number if you've done your DNA and you've uploaded it to JetMatch, and you can actually run your kit and the Clovis baby, which is a Native American mummy. And you can see how far back, I mean, if you have any connection to it, I do. I was so psyched about that. And kind of sad at the same time because my dad passed away when I was 4, and I think he would have gotten a kick out of this, especially, looking at that 15%, because my mom doesn't have that much Native American in her. I think most of that came from my daddy's side. But anyway, the thing was that, okay, I did my test, and then I was hoping that one of my maternal cousins, biological cousins, tested. And then I was thinking it would be cool to, reach out to them. But every time I brought this up with my mother, it was really hard because she had a very hard relationship with her biological mother, to the point where, we cut all ties with them. And obviously, um, there was a lot of stuff said on that side of the family about my mother and my grandmother, which was, I think, quite unfair. But I asked my mom, and when I started doing the DNA test, I said to her, there's a chance that Alejandro, who was my mom's biological father, he fathers some more kids in New York, because oh my gosh, sorry, because he used to be in New York, working and doing stuff, and his wife was in Puerto Rico. So I was expecting to find somebody, and I was quite disappointed that no one from the biological family has tested, or that he didn't have any other kids who tested. So I just, I started joining groups and talking to matches on Ancestry, which was really, really fun. And sometimes it's really, really frustrating because we don't know how we match, but we know we're cousins because, you see the chromosome break, and when they break it down, it tells you exactly how you match, especially if you upload to JetMatch, you can see the chromosomes that you match each other. And you can do that on 23 as well. So the thing is that I was really thinking about that, and I brought it up with my mom at least 3 or 4 times as I met more and more people who were doing DNA testing and trying to find their relatives or finding more about their families. And my mom was quite inflexible, which I totally understand. I think there's a lot of adoptees who have had a very good um, life with their adoptive parents, and they don't really want to know, or they don't really need to know. But for my mom, I understood, because it was really hard. Her biological mother made it really hard for her to reach out to her or have a good relationship with her, because I think from all points, it was a hard story. My As I said, my grandfather, my biological grandfather, wasn't there. He was going to New York to travel to work for work, and his wife would stay home with like a lot of kids. I think they had 5 children, if I'm not wrong, and she couldn't feed them. And my mom, when she was fostered by my grandmother before they adopted her, she was malnourished. She was underweight. She had worms. It was a really dire situation. And her brother-in-law, my uncle Silverio, thought, he had to help her somehow. So he asked my adoptive grandmother to take my mom. And she wasn't going to take my mom. She was going to take somebody else. But then my mom held on to my grandmother, and my grandmother said, if you want me to take one of the girls to foster, I'll take this one. My mom was 2.5. And I guess, since she seemed to be at ease with my grandmother, it would have been easier. And then my uncle Silverio went back to their house, took my mom back to my adoptive grandparents' house, and that was it. And my mom, she was made to feel part of the family from the get-go, and she was loved and cherished. And it's really sad, because her biological mother couldn't see what my grandparents were doing for my mom, and she accused them of stealing her. She accused them of really horrible things. And it took a long time for my mom to be adopted, because she wasn't adopted until she was 10. And because my biological grandfather was always in New York, but then he came back, and then he terrified my mother. He was a little bit of a bully, and he would say horrible stuff to my mother and her brother as well. So my mom really didn't want to deal with them. And when they went to in front of the judge, they accused my grandparents again of stealing my mom and all of these things. And my mom asked if she could talk to the judge, and when she did, she pretty much told the judge, if you send me away from my parents, meaning my adoptive grandparents, if you send me away from them, I'll kill myself. I'll go in front of a car and I'll let a car kill me. And because she didn't want to be with people who intimidated her and were bullies, really. And after I've had my children, and I think, like, for my mom, it wasn't important to establish a connection with her family. But for me, I heard about these stories, and the only time I remember seeing well, not the only time, but one of the last times that I saw my biological grandmother, it wasn't a very nice conversation. Like, the way she talked to me and the way she kind of forced me, like, I'm your grandmother, and Felipa, who was my adoptive grandmother, um she's nothing to you. And it was really hurtful, because I was really small, and I don't have good memories of her. All the memories I have of this lady are, hard memories. But I don't have memories of my aunts. I don't have memories of my cousins. So I really wanted, and I longed to establish a connection, at least with one cousin that I could talk to, and that I could not only learn about the family, but sort of, have a connection. Just have a connection. Because I had all these connections with other cousins, distantly related cousins, who feel like first cousins, because they're a bunch of really lovely people. But I still miss that. And I remember telling my mom a few months ago, like, I think I'm going to try to see if I can find your sisters on Facebook. And my mom was like, well, I don't want anything to do with them. They were really mean. They said really hurtful things about your grandmother, and meaning my adoptive grandmother. and they said hurtful things when my father died, and I understand that. I understand why my mom feels like she has to protect herself, because I think she set herself up to try and have a relationship, and then things didn't work out, and the aftermath of that must have been hell. But it was nothing to do with me or my cousins, and I would really want to see my cousins, or at least talk to them on the phone. So I sent a message about a year ago, but he went unreplied. And as I was looking at stuff from other adoptees in the group, I belong to a group that it's called Primus and Primus DNA tribe. And I've met really nice people in that group, and adoptees who are trying to find information and who have no information. And it's really hard to see somebody who wants to know where they came from, and have no indication, no surnames, no names, no places, nothing to find that information. So I thought, I have those names. I can make that connection for myself, not for my mother, for myself. Even though my mother doesn't understand it, and as I've said, she's very inflexible and opinionated, and I love her because I'm the same. But for in this, we agreed to disagree, and I said to her, I won't tell you what I find, I won't tell you anything. So I reached out to my mom's younger sister, whose birthday is actually the same day as my mother's, a year apart. And I talked to one of her daughters, and then I talked to another one of her daughters, and they're really cool girls, and I love them, their family. And it wasn't easy to begin with, because I think there's apprehension on both sides, and I think I was really afraid of saying something that would be, I don't, not disrespectful, but kind of disrespectful, because obviously I only know the things that happened from my mother's point of view, not even my grandmother's. My grandmother tried to get my mom to have a relationship with her biological mother, but it was a very hard thing. And I guess, since I've become a mother, I can see both sides of. My grandmother probably thought my mother betrayed her, and my mother probably thought that her mother betrayed her, because as a mom, you are supposed to put your children first, and you're supposed to, even if your child makes a decision that hurts you, you must know, I mean, if the decision, it's going to be good for your child and not detrimental, but if it's going to be a good decision, then it should be something that you feel proud about, and that you allow to happen because your child needs to grow or whatever. And but so I did talk to my cousins, and it was really good. And but it was touch and go, because I didn't want to say things, but I felt like whenever things like, my grandmother would say, your grandmother still stole, I didn't want that to become an issue, and I didn't want to blame my uncle Silverio for taking my mom. And I think he actually raised my younger aunt as well. My mom was placed with somebody, with my grandparents, not somebody, with my grandparents, and then I think one of the other sisters got placed as well with other people. So I mean, he was trying to get the children. He was trying to get my grandmother to my biological grandmother to be able to take care of her children, and maybe those that she couldn't take care of, then they could go to some people who could take care of them. And I don't know, it's a very complicated situation. um and still, like I've talked to my aunt, and she's really nice, she's really sweet, and she was telling me like Dios te bendiga, which is a very lovely custom that we have in Puerto Rico, where you ask for your blessing, and your aunts and your uncles, sometimes your older cousins, grandparents, your parents, they say God bless you. um so it was, it was nice to talk to her. I'm not comfortable saying, like, like calling her auntie, because I I don't know, maybe someday, but for now, it's nice to have, being able to correspond with her through Facebook Messenger, and with my cousins. So I think, sometimes people will ask you, why do you do these? I mean, you have your family, and why do you need that extra thing? And I think it's like, well, sometimes, especially when we want to know more about our ancestors and things, we really want to um find out about them and find the good, the bad, and the ugly. And to me, it's important. For my mother, it's not important at all. I mean, her parents passed away, her adoptive parents, and her older sister and brother passed away, and she has a sister who lives in Cali. Hi, Titi Joyce, love you, miss you. um so for her, it's not important, and I can understand why. But for me, I think I did the right thing for me. I did the right thing to try and communicate with them. And also, I understand my mom, because my dad's family they are crazy people. But the thing is that um there was a lot of resentment and anger towards my mother, who um obviously, she and my dad separated and later got divorced, and my dad passed away when I was 4, and my mom was blamed for it. So this is for another video, but anyway, but he took some pills. He had this thing of, he was at the VA, and he had this thing of, whenever he wanted my mom to come, because my mom was trying to put some distance between them because he needed treatment, and she didn't think it was she thought it was detrimental to his treatment for her to come and see him very often, because he got worse, I think, sometimes, and he had schizophrenia, and well, he took some pills and they couldn't pump his stomach quick enough, so he passed away. And that was written as a suicide, which is another story. But the thing was, grandmother made one of the cousins call my mother early in the morning to tell her, well, you should be happy now because he's dead. So all of those things, I think, through the years, all these bad things in the family accumulate to a point where you have to cut ties. And then obviously, because you cut ties with them, then you're the bad person, because whatever. This is for another video. But the thing is, this is the video that I deleted. Because I don't know, I just felt kind of funny talking about it, and then I felt like, after seeing the Finding Your Roots with LL Cool J, where he has this sudden, like, he finds the truth about his mother's parents, and he kind of has the realization of, my grandparents are always going to be my grandparents, which is how I feel. My grandparents are Felipa and Piri Alamo, and my aunts are going to be Lily Dixon and Joyce Cordero. And my uncle is always going to be, Uncle Bob, who was Aunt Lily's husband, and Uncle Peter, who was my mom's older brother. And but I think I would like a relationship, because I would like to get to know them. I mean, this was stuff that the adults did back then that affected the lives of children, because obviously we didn't grow up together. And but going back to LL Cool J, it was really funny when he realized that he was an adoptive grandson. It hit me as well, as ridiculous as it sounds, because I'm almost 42, and I've known my mom was adopted since I was probably 10 or 11. I think it was right around the time that my mom stopped talking to her biological mother that I found out all of this. So it was really quite ridiculous for me to think, oh my god, so am I. I'm an adoptive granddaughter of Piri and Felipe Alamo. Like, of course I am. My mom was adopted. Like, yeah. And it was really weird, because then I felt the same way. Like, and I kind of felt like I don't want to betray their memory, because, as I've said, they were my grandparents. But I don't think I am. I think I'm trying to, if anything, live by my grandmother's rules, which were, be kind to everybody, love everybody, be nice, And also, she did try to get my mom to have a relationship with her mother and her sisters and her brothers and her father to an extent. Um, so it is, yeah. So I that really hit me, and I was like, oh my God, really? Now you're thinking about this? But anyway, I think, I've talked a lot. I mean, I don't even know if I can upload all of this in one go, but I just wanted to do this video and let people know, if you're in this genealogical search journey, whatever, or DNA testing to find your family, sometimes there are good stories about meeting people, sometimes there aren't. But if you can find a group of people, um, that will understand you, like I have this group, the Primas and Primas DNA tribe. Everybody's trying to search for answers. Everybody's so into it, and everybody's like crazy funny and crazy loving. So I think that would help. So reach out to your contacts, your matches on Ancestry. 23 people tend to take a long time to reply, but upload your stuff to GEDmatch and take a chance about letting people contact you and get to know them. And even if you don't know how exactly you connect, you're making a connection, and in the end it'll be awesome because you'll have all these primas and primas or cousins. It doesn't have to be only the Puerto Ricans, everybody's doing it. So it would be cool. So anyway, I'm gonna stop now because this is really long. Thank you so much if you've stayed with me through the whole thing. Anyway, have a great day. Bye.